For my 18th birthday, my parents sat me down and confessed they'd saved absolutely nothing for my college, honestly believing I'd never actually go or amount to much. Yet, my younger sister already possessed a complete university fund and a car awaiting her when she turned 16. Presently, I'm funding my own education, holding down 2 positions, and they continually wonder why I've been so withdrawn recently. The silence in the kitchen after my mother's words felt like a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. We honestly didn't think you'd actually go or amount to much. My ears rang with the echo of it, even as my brain struggled to reassemble the shattered fragments of my 18th birthday morning. It wasn't anger or disappointment I saw in Diane's eyes, but pity, a sickly sweet condescension that curdled my stomach. My father, Kenneth, simply adjusted his grip on his coffee mug, his jaw tight, a silent accomplice. Ashley, my younger sister, shifted her weight, a nervous rustle of fabric, and then her quiet footsteps retreated, leaving me alone at the table with their casual cruelty. Here's the thing. I'd walked into that room expecting pancakes, maybe a modest gift, the usual small celebration. Instead, I'd been handed a judgment, a dismissal of my entire existence wrapped in a thin veneer of parental concern. My mind kept replaying the words, searching for a hidden meaning, a kinder interpretation, but there was none. "You didn't think I'd go to college?" I repeated slowly, the sound of my own voice thin and unfamiliar. "But I'm graduating with a 3.8 GPA. I've been accepted to 3 universities." Kenneth grunted, dismissing it all with a wave of his hand. "Your grades improved recently, sure, but you've always been average. Content was good enough. We made financial decisions based on where we thought each of our children would end up." A cold certainty settled in my gut. I looked at Ashley's silver Honda, parked proudly in the driveway, a 16th birthday gift just last month. I remembered her college campus tour, years before she was even eligible. The contrast was a slap to the face, a clear, unmistakable message. This kind of parental favoritism, often unconscious but deeply impactful, creates profound emotional wounds. It's a subtle form of emotional neglect, where a child's inherent value is made conditional on their performance or perceived potential, leading to feelings of inadequacy and a constant need to prove one's worth. It leaves deep scars on self-esteem, forcing the overlooked child to constantly seek external validation or forge their own internal resilience. And where did you think I'd end up? The question came out steadier than I felt, though my hands were trembling under the table. My mother drummed her fingers against her untouched coffee mug. Community college? Maybe a local job? Marriage? We assumed you'd find a practical path that didn't require significant investment. Investment. The word hit me like a physical blow. I'd been their daughter for 18 years, not a stock portfolio, but apparently, I was also a calculated risk that hadn't seemed worth the bet. Suddenly, the mention of Ashley's college fund, casually dropped into dinner conversations for years, flashed through my mind. How much did she have? How much had they poured into her future while leaving mine a barren landscape? How much does Ashley have saved? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Kenneth snapped, "That's not relevant to this conversation." But then a voice, small but firm, cut through the tense air from the stairs. $42,000, Ashley said, gripping the railing, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and shame. "Plus, the car they bought me is paid off. And they're planning to cover my housing costs freshman year." Diane's head snapped towards her younger daughter, a sharp, disbelieving sound escaping her lips. "Ashley, go to your room." But Ashley stood her ground. She deserves to know the truth. She vanished upstairs, leaving me to do the grim math in my head. $42,000 for college. $15,000 for the car. Another $10,000 for freshman housing. Nearly $70,000 invested in Ashley's future before she'd even started her junior year of high school. What I found next changed everything. I made honor roll every semester my freshman and sophomore year. I heard myself say, the words a desperate plea for recognition. I joined the robotics team. I volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend for 2 years. Diane waved it away. "You were fine. That casual dismissal, the word fine, cracked something inside my chest. Fine isn't exceptional. Fine isn't worthy of investment. Your sister has always shown more drive, more ambition. She's going places. The injustice of it all burned, hot and acrid in my throat. Where exactly have I been going for the last 18 years while living under your roof? My voice came out harder than intended, raw with hurt. What did I do that made you so certain I wouldn't succeed? Kenneth scraped his chair back abruptly, the sound grating. This isn't about punishment or judgment. We made practical decisions with limited resources. Not every child needs or deserves the same level of financial support. Limited resources. My mind reeled. The boat they bought 3 years ago, sitting half the year in the driveway. The kitchen renovation. The timeshare in Florida. Limited hadn't meant scarce. It meant selective. It meant me. I went upstairs, the acceptance letter from my top choice university, pinned to my bulletin board, now felt like a cruel joke. The deadline for the housing deposit was 3 weeks away. The financial aid covered tuition, through grants and loans I'd have to repay, but housing, books, food, transportation all on me. My phone buzzed with birthday messages, a torrent of well wishes from people who had no idea my world had just tilted sideways. I couldn't bring myself to respond to any of them. A soft knock on my door. Ashley, can I come in? I shrugged, a weary, silent permission. She sat on the floor, hugging her knees. I didn't know they were going to tell you like that. Did she know they had nothing saved for me? She nodded miserably. I found out last year when Dad was showing me the investment statements for my fund. I asked if you had one, too, and he said, you'd probably be fine without it. Probably fine. The echo of those words twisted in my gut. I'm sorry, Ashley whispered. I should have told you. I wanted to be angry at her, but she was 16 and hadn't created this situation. It's not your fault our parents decided I wasn't worth investing in. She flinched, but didn't argue. That night, I researched everything. Scholarships, though most deadlines had passed. Jobs near campus. The cheapest housing. By 3 o'clock in the morning, a plan, terrifying but possible, began to coalesce. 2 jobs, shared housing, ramen and rice. The next week, I found work at a local grocery store. Patricia, my manager, a woman who'd put herself through nursing school in her 30s, gave me as many hours as legally possible. You've got that look, she said after I explained. The one that says you'll do whatever it takes. Those are the people who make it. I worked 40 hours a week, my grades dipping slightly from 3.8 to 3.6, but I graduated. I had $2,200 saved. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was mine. My parents attended graduation, smiling for photos, taking me to a chain restaurant. Nobody mentioned college or money. Kenneth nodded approvingly when I said I'd be working all summer, as if confirming his long-held beliefs about me. 3 days after graduation, I moved out. A friend's older sister needed a roommate for the summer near my future campus. The place was tiny, the neighborhood rough, but it was mine. I took an additional job cleaning houses. 7 days a week through June and July. My parents called occasionally, brief, superficial check-ins. Are you eating enough? You can always come home if things get difficult. The subtext they never caught was that their version of coming home meant giving up, proving them right. And what they couldn't grasp was that I was learning more about myself than I ever had under their roof. August arrived, and I moved into a cramped room in the oldest dormitory with a roommate named Tessa who kept vampire hours and smelled perpetually of patchouli. The library job started immediately, 20 hours shelving books. The coffee shop added another 25, mostly early mornings and weekend shifts that left my hands permanently smelling of espresso. Engineering school was brutally difficult, even without working 2 jobs. My first calculus exam came back with a 72. I sat in the bathroom, sobbing silently, the shame burning, because I couldn't afford to fail. Couldn't afford to prove them right. Professor Marilyn Rodriguez, my physics professor, noticed me falling asleep. What's going on? She asked directly. I explained. She listened, then offered me a research assistant position. 15 hours a week, better pay, and it looked excellent on a resume. The work was harder than making lattes, but intellectually engaging in a way that reminded me why I had chosen engineering. Professor Rodriguez became a mentor, seeing potential in me that my parents had completely missed. She wrote recommendation letters, connected me with scholarships, and occasionally brought me food. My parents called every few weeks. How was school? Fine. Did I need anything? No. Coming home for Thanksgiving? Probably not. I picked up extra shifts. Diane sounded hurt. We haven't seen you in months. Ashley misses you. Kenneth got on the line. Your mother says you sound different. Stressed. You know, if college is too overwhelming, there's no shame in taking a break. You could come home, work for a while, figure things out. The offer wasn't kindness. It was expectation fulfilling itself. They predicted I wouldn't make it. And here was the graceful exit ramp back to their version of my future. The offer to come home wasn't kindness. It was a subtle form of manipulation, often termed gaslighting, where parents attempt to reinforce their narrative and regain control by making the child doubt their capabilities and resilience. It serves to undermine the child's independent efforts and confirm their initial low expectations. I'm not quitting, I said flatly. I'm managing just fine. Except I wasn't. Not really. Second semester started with a course load that made fall look easy. Thermodynamics, differential equations, material science. The research position with Professor Rodriguez was the only thing keeping me financially afloat after I quit the coffee shop, but 15 hours wasn't enough. I picked up tutoring gigs. Sleep became theoretical. 4 or 5 hours a night, propelled by coffee and spite. My roommate, Tessa, finally staged an intervention. You're going to actually kill yourself at this rate, she said, blocking the door. When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I couldn't remember. I can't slow down, I told her, tears stinging my eyes. If I slow down, I fail. If I fail, I prove them right. Prove who right? The whole story came out then. My parents, the missing college fund, Ashley's car, the casual cruelty. Tessa listened, horrified, then grabbed her laptop. She found a grant program for students in financial hardship. $5,000. We stayed up until 3 a.m. filling it out, Tessa editing my essay while I pulled together bank statements. 6 weeks later, the grant arrived. $5,000 deposited directly into my student account. For the first time, I could breathe slightly easier. I cut my tutoring hours, implemented a radical concept called the sleep schedule. My grades climbed. I made the dean's list. Professor Rodriguez submitted my name for a competitive summer research program that paid $15 an hour for 40 hours a week. I got it. Summer arrived. I stayed on campus, working in the engineering lab, taking 2 classes. For the first time in a year, I had something resembling financial stability. I could afford groceries beyond rice and ramen. I bought new shoes instead of duct taping my old ones. Ashley called in July, her voice small. Mom keeps asking why you never come home. I told her. Maybe she should think about what they said to you on your birthday. What did she say? That they were just being honest about their financial limitations and you're being dramatic by holding a grudge. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Dramatic, right? I told her that wasn't fair. Ashley continued. I said, you're putting yourself through school with no help, and maybe they should be proud instead of confused about why you're distant. How'd that go over? Dad said I'm too young to understand the complexities of family finances. Mom cried and said she's done her best as a parent. Their best included saving nothing for my future while giving you everything, I said, my voice tight. That's not complexity. That's favoritism. Ashley was quiet. I know. I'm sorry. I got things you didn't. It's not fair. It's not your fault, I told her, meaning it. You didn't choose to be the favorite. We talked for another hour, really talked. She told me about her junior year, her college plans, her growing awareness of how differently our parents treated us. I told her about my research, Professor Rodriguez, about learning I was capable of more than anyone in our family had believed. You're going to do amazing things, Ashley said before we hung up. I always knew that, even if they didn't. Fall semester of sophomore year started with a new confidence. I'd survived the hardest year. I moved into a cheaper off-campus apartment with 2 engineering students who became genuine friends. The research position expanded into a paid teaching assistant role. My parents called in September, their voices overly cheerful. We wanted to check in since we haven't heard from you much. Maybe you could come home for your birthday. My 19th birthday. I'd nearly forgotten it. I can't. Too much work. Surely you can take one weekend? Diane pressed. We miss you. The house feels empty without you. The house had felt empty while I lived there, I thought, but didn't say. Maybe Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving came, and I made the drive home, my beat-up Honda Civic rattling ominously the entire 4 hours. The car had been a graduation gift from Patricia, my old grocery store manager, sold to me for $800. It needed constant work, but it was mine. The drive itself gave me too much time to think. Familiar landmarks flashed by. The gas station where I bought slushies after soccer, the strip mall where Ashley and I browsed bookstores, the park where our family had picnicked when things felt simpler. Each mile felt like traveling backward through a life that didn't quite fit anymore. My phone buzzed with Diane's messages. What time would I arrive? Did I have dietary restrictions? Was I bringing laundry home? The questions felt invasive, like she was trying to parent me retroactively after years of benign neglect. I answered in single words. Ashley called 20 minutes out. Fair warning. Mom's been cooking since yesterday, and she's in one of her moods where she needs everything to be perfect. Dad's pretending to watch football, but he's actually just anxious. It's weird energy. They're always weird when I come home, I said. This is different, she insisted. I think they know something's wrong, but they don't understand what or how to fix it. Mom keeps asking me if you've mentioned being upset about anything. And what do you tell her? That she should ask you directly instead of using me as a spy. Ashley paused. She doesn't like that answer. I pulled into the driveway, noting the new basketball hoop above the garage, something I'd begged for as a kid and been told was too expensive. Apparently, budgets had loosened in my absence. Walking into my parents' house felt like entering a museum of someone else's life. Everything looked the same. Same furniture, same paint, same family photos where I appeared significantly less often than Ashley. My sister met me at the door with a hug that lasted longer than usual, whispering, "I'm glad you're here," like she'd been worried I wouldn't show. Dinner was polite, surface level. Kenneth asked about school in the vague way of someone making conversation rather than showing genuine interest. Diane mentioned Ashley's latest achievements, honor roll, lead in the school musical, early acceptance to her first-choice university. I made appropriate congratulatory noises while pushing turkey around my plate. And how are your grades? Diane asked, as if suddenly remembering I also attended college. Dean's List last semester. On track for it again this fall. Kenneth's eyebrows raised. That's good. Surprising, given how much you're working. The implication hung there. Surprising that I was capable, surprising that I hadn't failed, surprising that their low expectations had been wrong. I swallowed the angry response building in my throat and just nodded. After dinner, Diane cornered me in the kitchen. You seem different, harder somehow. I'm just tired, I said. Your father and I have been talking. She paused, rearranging the clean dishes I'd already loaded. We know you've been struggling financially. If you needed help, you could have asked. The words were so absurd, I actually laughed. Asked for help? You told me to my face you didn't think I was worth investing in. That's not what we said, she protested weakly. That's exactly what you said. You didn't think I'd go to college or amount to much, so you saved nothing. Those were your words, Mom. Verbatim. Her face flushed. We were trying to be honest about our financial situation. Ashley's $42,000 college fund suggests your financial situation was fine. You just decided to spend it on the daughter you believed in. Diane's mouth opened and closed several times. It's more complicated than that. It really isn't, I said, closing the dishwasher with more force than necessary. You picked a favorite and funded her future. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done pretending we have the kind of relationship where I owe you updates and visits. I left the next morning, cutting the visit short with excuses about work. Ashley walked me to my car, her expression troubled. They really don't get it, do they? They don't want to get it, I said. Getting it would mean admitting they messed up, and that's apparently impossible. The drive back to campus felt like shedding heavy clothes. The further I got from my parents' house, the easier I could breathe. My phone rang twice with calls from my mother that I let go to voicemail. Sophomore year continued its demanding pace, but I found a rhythm that worked. Classes, research, teaching, studying, and occasional social interaction with friends who understood the specific pressure of engineering school. Professor Rodriguez recommended me for a prestigious summer internship with a renewable energy company. I got it. 3 months in California, working on solar panel efficiency research, making more money than I'd ever seen. The internship covered housing and paid enough that I could save several $1,000s while actually enjoying my summer. My parents called to congratulate me when I mentioned it briefly in a text to Ashley, who'd apparently shared the news. "That's wonderful, honey," Diane said, her voice warm in a way that felt performative. "We always knew you had potential." "Did you?" I asked, because I distinctly remember a different assessment. Kenneth got on the line. "Your mother's trying to say we're proud of you." "Proud of me for succeeding despite you," I countered, or proud of yourselves for being proven wrong? The silence on the other end was answer enough. The call ended shortly after, awkward and unresolved. The internship was transformative. I worked with brilliant engineers, contributed to actual research that might matter, and got a taste of what my post-graduation life could look like. My supervisor, Gloria Hayes, who'd built her career on being underestimated, took me to lunch on my last day. "You've got something special," she said. "Not just the technical skills, though those are solid. You've got the hunger. The drive of someone who's had to fight for every opportunity. Is it that obvious?" I asked. She smiled knowingly. "I recognize it because I had it too. Nobody handed me anything. I took it. Keep that edge. It'll take you further than natural talent ever could." Gloria leaned back in her chair. "Can I tell you something that might sound harsh?" I braced myself. "The people who doubt you early on, they're doing you a favor, even if it doesn't feel like it. They're giving you fuel. My parents told me engineering wasn't for women, that I should focus on finding a good husband. I've got 3 patents and a department I built from nothing. Their doubt became my rocket fuel. Do you still talk to them?" I asked quietly. "Holidays and birthdays, surface-level pleasantries. They brag about me to their friends now. Talk about their daughter, the engineer, like they always supported me. I let them have that fiction because correcting it would take more energy than it's worth. But I never forgot what they said when it mattered. That's not bitterness. That's just truth." The conversation stayed with me, Gloria's words giving me permission to stop feeling guilty about the distance I'd created. This emotional distance, a concept often explored in family systems theory as an emotional cutoff, isn't necessarily about anger, but self-preservation. It's a protective mechanism against repeated emotional invalidation and a necessary boundary for an individual to thrive independently, free from the toxic dynamics that once defined their family relationships. I went back to campus for junior year with Gloria's words and a job offer contingent on graduation. Financial security felt suddenly possible, a destination I could actually reach. My parents called less frequently, our conversations growing shorter, more strained. They seemed baffled by my continued distance, unable to connect their actions with my reactions. Ashley kept me updated on family dynamics. Diane occasionally cried about her difficult elder daughter who refused to forgive, while Kenneth maintained I was being immature. "They rewrote history," Ashley explained during one of our calls. "In their version, they always supported you and you're just being stubborn." "Of course they have," I said. Taking responsibility would require acknowledging they failed as parents. Junior year flew by. Senior year started with a bittersweet awareness that this was the final stretch. One more year of balancing work and school, careful budgeting, calculated sacrifices. The finish line was visible. The job offer from the California company was officially extended in October. $68,000 starting salary, full benefits, relocation assistance. I accepted immediately, signing the paperwork with hands that shook slightly. For years of relentless work had led here to proof, undeniable and concrete, that my parents had been catastrophically wrong about who I was and what I could achieve. I called Ashley first. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I knew it. I knew you'd do something incredible. You might be the only one in the family who did, I said. Are you going to tell Mom and Dad? I considered lying, but settled on honesty. Eventually, when I feel like it. That turned out to be Thanksgiving, when I made the drive home for what I'd already decided would be the last time. The house looked smaller, less significant than in my memories. My parents greeted me with careful enthusiasm, like approaching a skittish animal. Dinner conversation centered on Ashley's college plans, early decision to a prestigious private university. My parents beamed, discussing dorms, courses, football games. And what about you? Diane asked, turning to me with what looked like genuine curiosity. What are your plans after graduation? I set down my fork with deliberate care. I accepted a job offer with Hayes Renewable Energy in California. I'll be working as a junior engineer on their residential solar division. Starting salary is $68,000 with benefits and relocation assistance. The table went silent. Kenneth's face did something complicated, surprise warring with what might have been pride, or possibly just indigestion. Diane's mouth formed a small O shape. Ashley broke into a grin, genuine and unrestrained. That's incredible. California. When do you start? July, right after graduation. I kept my eyes on my parents, watching them process information that clearly didn't align with their long-held assumptions. Kenneth cleared his throat. That's quite an achievement. How did you manage to secure such a position? The question rankled. How did I manage it? Through 4 years of relentless work they'd never witnessed because they'd never bothered to ask. Through research projects and networking and proving myself to people who actually believed I had something to offer. I interned with them last summer, I said evenly. My supervisor recommended me. Apparently, my work met their standards. Diane reached for her wine glass. We had no idea you were doing so well. You never mentioned any of this. You never asked. The words came out sharper than intended, but I didn't soften them. Our conversations are usually about 5 minutes long. You ask if I'm eating enough, I say yes, and we hang up. That's because you don't share anything with us, Kenneth said, defensiveness creeping into his tone. We can only know what you tell us. I told you I was studying engineering. I told you I was working multiple jobs. I told you I made Dean's List. You responded with surprise each time, like you couldn't quite believe I was capable of any of it. That's not fair. We're so proud of you. Are you? I asked, my voice rising a fraction. Because 4.5 years ago, you told me you didn't think I'd go to college or amount to much. You invested nothing in my education because you assumed I'd be average at best. Now I'm graduating with honors. I have a research publication pending, and I've secured a position with one of the leading companies in renewable energy. So, I'm curious, what exactly are you proud of? Kenneth's jaw tightened. That's not fair. We did the best we could with the information we had. The information you had was 17 years of living with me. Apparently, that wasn't enough to see any potential worth nurturing. You're twisting our words, Diane protested. We never said you had no potential. Ashley's voice cut through quietly but firmly. Actually, that's pretty much exactly what you said. I was there. I heard it. Both parents turned to stare at their younger daughter, who met their gazes without flinching. You told her she was average and you'd made financial decisions based on where you thought she'd end up. You said she wasn't exceptional like me. I remember every word because it was horrible. Ashley, that's enough, Kenneth said sharply. No, it isn't, she shot back. You've spent 4 years acting confused about why she doesn't come home, why she doesn't call, why she's so distant. This is why. You destroyed her 18th birthday by telling her she wasn't worth investing in. Then you're surprised she doesn't want a relationship with you. Diane's eyes filled with tears. We made a mistake. All right? Is that what you want to hear? We misjudged the situation. I don't want to hear anything, I said quietly. I stopped needing your approval or your belated pride about 3 years ago. I came tonight because Ashley asked me to, but I don't think I'll be coming back after this. You're our daughter, Diane said, her voice breaking. You can't just cut us out of your life. Watch me, I said, standing from the table. You cut me out of your financial planning and emotional investment when it mattered. Now I'm returning the favor. I walked out of the house, Ashley following me to my car. She hugged me tight, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I should have said something years ago. You were a kid," I told her. "This was never your responsibility to fix." "Will I still see you?" she asked. "After you moved to California?" "Of course. You're my sister. None of this is about you." I drove away from my childhood home for the last time, watching it disappear in the rearview mirror without regret. The sense of closure was immediate and complete. I'd spent 4 years proving my parents wrong, but the real victory was simpler than that. I'd proven myself right. I was capable, driven, and valuable, regardless of whether they'd ever seen it. Graduation came in May. Professor Rodriguez hooding me as I received my degree with honors. My friends were there. Ashley flew in, against our parents' wishes, and Gloria Hayes drove up from California to watch me walk across the stage. The people who believed in me, invested in me, and supported me when it mattered, those were the people who mattered. My parents sent a card with a check for $500 and a note about being proud. I cashed the check and donated it to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Their money meant nothing now, arriving years too late to matter. I moved to California in June, started my job in July, and began building a life that had nothing to do with their expectations or limitations. The distance, both geographical and emotional, felt appropriate. They'd set the terms of our relationship when they decided I wasn't worth their investment. I was simply honoring those terms. My apartment was small but flooded with natural light, in a neighborhood full of young professionals as hungry and driven as I was. My coworkers at Hayes became fast friends. Gloria took me under her wing, in a way that felt maternal without the complicated baggage my actual mother brought. When I made mistakes, and I made plenty, she treated them as learning opportunities rather than confirmation of inadequacy. "You're going to be better than me someday," she said after I'd successfully presented a design modification that saved the company significant money. "Maybe sooner than you think." 3 months into the job, I got my first paycheck that reflected a performance bonus. The number in my bank account was higher than anything I'd seen during 4 years of scraping by. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried, overwhelmed by the sheer relief of financial security. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a restaurant I'd walked past a dozen times, but never entered because the prices seemed astronomical. I ordered without checking costs, left a generous tip, and walked home feeling like I'd crossed some invisible threshold into a life I'd only imagined. Ashley called weekly, updating me on her freshman year. Our relationship grew stronger, our parents no longer mediating it. She apologized repeatedly for her privilege until I told her to stop. She hadn't chosen favoritism any more than I'd chosen dismissal. My career flourished. Within 2 years, I'd been promoted twice and was leading my own project team. I bought a house at 24, a small place in a decent neighborhood that was entirely mine. No help from family, no loans from parents who'd suddenly discovered I was worth investing in after all. The day I closed on it, I sent a photo to Ashley with a caption, "Built on spite and student loans." She responded with a string of celebration emojis and a longer message, "Mom saw your Instagram post about the house." She cried and said she wished she'd done things differently. I didn't respond to that part. Regret changes nothing. It's just nostalgia for better decisions you didn't make. My parents had shown me exactly who they were when I needed them most. I'd spent years learning to believe them. My life is good now. I have work that matters, friends who value me, a sister who's genuinely proud of my accomplishments, and a future I built from nothing because I had no choice. Sometimes I wonder who I would have become if my parents had believed in me. But mostly I'm grateful for the hardship because it taught me self-reliance in a way comfort never could. They call occasionally. Birthdays, holidays, awkward attempts at reconciliation. I'm polite but distant, giving them nothing real. They ask when I'll visit. I say, maybe next year, knowing I won't. They've earned exactly this much of me and nothing more. Last month, Ashley told me our mother keeps asking what she can do to fix our relationship. The answer is simple, but impossible. She'd need to go back in time and choose differently. She'd need to see value in a 17-year-old girl who was fine instead of exceptional, who needed support instead of dismissal. She'd need to be a different person making different choices. Since that's not possible, we exist in this state of permanent distance. They're my parents biologically, but strangers in every way that matters. I've built a family of choice, friends, mentors, people who saw potential in me when it mattered. Those are the relationships I nurture and value. Some people ask if I'll ever forgive my parents. The question misunderstands the situation. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about accepting that some damage is permanent. Some relationships can't be repaired, and some people will never understand the harm they caused. My parents will probably die believing they did their best, and I'm unreasonably unforgiving. I'm okay with that. Their understanding was never the point. The point was surviving, succeeding, and building a life so completely my own that their approval became irrelevant. Mission accomplished. I'm not distant because I'm holding a grudge. I'm distant because I finally learned the lesson they taught me. Not everyone is worth the investment, even family. They just never expected to be on the receiving end of that philosophy. What do you think constitutes a fair amount of support from parents? And at what point does a child owe their parents a relationship, regardless of past grievances?